Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. We have a very special guest today with us, Mr. Tom Krouse. Tom Krouse is the CEO of Donato's, the fast casual pizza franchise famous for the edge-to-edge toppings. Here in a nutshell is Tom's Donato story. First, he fell in love with pizza. Then he fell in love with the job offer, and then the mission of the company. Suffice it to say, Tom is all in on Donato's. Donato's has over 375 locations in 22 states and a team of people who not only care deeply about delivering premium pizza, but care even more for the communities they serve. As CEO of Donato's, a big part of Tom's role is ensuring Donato's vision is clear: to give more than we receive. That's why such a big part of his focus is on creating an environment where the team can thrive. Tom has also created a new weekly segment on LinkedIn called The Corner Piece: Leadership Insights by a Pizza Man, to share career advice and ideas that he has learned from working in the fast casual industry, or pizza industry, for 35 years. Tom, welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, Tracy. Thanks for having me. 35 years. I feel old all of a sudden. You're
Oh, don't
gonna
even
have
go
to pick
there.
me up.
No. Tom, you strike me as an individual who has so many passions, which I find so interesting. So I know you're passionate about pizza. I know you're passionate about leadership. I also understand you're passionate about music. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical background and how you've been tying that into franchise lately?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again. Yeah, I started playing music when I was a young man, mainly because I knew girls liked guys who had guitars in their hands. So, in true disclosure, that's why. Um, But no, I right now I play in a couple of different bands. I play in a bluegrass band that's kind of that I lead. Then I play in another band with other CEOs from the Central Ohio community, and we do fun. But both bands we actually do fundraising and we give back. But
Wow.
I started about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, really studying music and its effect on society, its effect on individuals. And I began to see these parallels between effective leadership and music theory, or even music composition. And so I kind of started to dive into that a little bit. And right now, I mean, for me personally, I used to play mediocre golf on the weekends and come home frustrated. Now I play mediocre music on the weekends and I'm never frustrated. So in many ways, it's a personal release for me, but it's a bit of a topic that I'm interested in as it relates to leadership. Maybe we'll talk about that more later, but yeah.
Very
Oh
cool.
my gosh, I love this idea of how music and leadership somewhat mirror each other. Um, so, can you give us a clue to maybe two or three things that you learned from music theory and from music that you've applied to your
Yeah.
leadership skills?
I was a few years ago, we had just had our annual franchise conference. So we had everybody in from around the country, and we were in a meeting talking about people, leadership, and how to engage our associates. And we were using words like, touching our people and emotionally connecting with our people, and all these words. Literally 2 days later, I was watching a YouTube video with Bruce Springsteen and Elvis Costello, and they were talking. And Bruce was talking about writing songs, and he talked about the goal is to reach out and emotionally connect with. They were literally the exact same words, and so as I think about leadership, there's the head and the heart part of leading an organization. And you can make all the logical decisions that make sense on a spreadsheet that and usually as it relates to profitability, it's a math equation in many ways. But the thing that gets in the way of that math equation, seeing through is, are you inspiring? And so on one level, I look at music as its way to inspire. Now, in terms of leadership, that inspiration is going to take the form of being accessible as a leader, showing humility, admitting mistakes, taking time with people. A lot of times, particularly in fast casual business, it's fast paced by its very nature. So how you deal with people really has to slow down. And so the connecting with people and how you interact with people, I think the messaging from the organization, we you look at people's mission statements, for example, and not to pick on other companies, but I've seen some mission statements that you could tell they sat in a room for 7 hours and they put every word they could think of on that mission statement. And they came out there and they went, yes, that's good. Anybody know what it is? No, of course not, because it's not simple and captivating and meaningful. And I think that's, if you look at popular music, the songs that are the most successful commercially are the ones, and actually USC did a study years ago where they studied popular culture, and they found that the more frequent that you repeated the chorus in a song, the more likely it was to rise up the charts. They had a statistic,
Oh, wow.
I think, and so, and I think about, as an organization, as leaders, sometimes we tend to tweak, here's the message, here's our mission. Well, now maybe here's our mission. Here's a different version of our mission. Then 6 months later, we've introduced mission 2.0 or whatever it is. And maybe it's not even mission, it's just the messaging. I think the idea of repeating that message consistently over and over again and being simple with that message. And that's something I've learned from music and from songwriting. Guns N' Roses had a hit song where the chorus was, take me down to Paradise City where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. See?
Oh, won't you
take me? Yeah. See, everybody knows it. If I said sweet Caroline, you would say exactly. So to be memorable, to be and to really get through the clutter to your people, you need to be simple and you need to be consistent. So that's just one lesson I think I've learned from music that I think is important. So
sounds like there are so many lessons in that. One is to take something that's complex and make it simple. I'm also hearing another concept that you're talking about, like where the music fills people up, like leaving people better or emotionally connecting with them. What do you do when you emotionally connect with someone? You leave them better. So tell us a little bit about that and this whole concept of giving back and building people up.
Yeah, well, I think when you, and I think I may have referenced this earlier, but I think when you're dealing with people, you have to slow everything down. I used to say, do you want to be efficient or do you want to be effective? And when you're dealing with people, you need to listen. And in a leadership role, and particularly in my role, and by the way, just because I talk about all this doesn't mean I'm necessarily good at all of it. I try to, though. And what do they say? Awareness is the first step. But I think slowing down and listening to people, where you're doing less of the talking, you're really becoming better as an organization because you're hearing from everybody. Slowing down, let's say you need to make a decision that someone isn't right for the organization. There's one way to do that. you make the change and you end it and you get it over with because it's uncomfortable, right? Many people have been through that. It's uncomfortable. So, but are you showing the kind of respect and leaving that person with a sense of dignity? And at Donato's, we talk about this a lot, and lawyers go crazy at some of the things that we do because they just don't like it. They don't like, I'll go exactly like clean cut, get it out, make sure they sign it and you're done.
Right.
And we just had to let someone go not that long ago where, and it's uncomfortable for everybody, but we met back with them again later and just to see how we could help. And I'm not, patting ourselves on the back. I'm just making a point that I think when you spend time with someone and you give them a sense of dignity and value, whether they're leaving the company or whether they're a part of the company, that effect that it has on that person goes into the universe. And the person that left the company, they're going to still be fans of Donato's. We've had anniversary parties where we've invited people to come back, and even though they didn't leave by their own volition, we're still connected. And so I think that's an example of how, if you slow down and you really listen and you take time and you treat people the way you would like to be treated, no matter what that situation is. But it's so hard because we've got so many moving parts, in your businesses, you've got all these moving parts, and being a multitasker is like heralded as the greatest thing in the world nowadays. And I tell you, when it comes to people, you better not be multitasking. You better be taking time, going into analog mode, hearing, speaking. So it's a different world, but I think that's part of what this company has always been about. And we can talk about the history of this company, but my father-in-law really started this company with wanting to do business in a different way. It wasn't just about profit. I love the way profitability is, I think, the last of at your intro, you talked about profit comes. That's the way to think about it. You start with profit, you're off track right from the beginning, right? So, but I think that's a little bit about probably one of the most important parts of leadership is how you're dealing with people, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. It's interesting, as a behavioral scientist, I can tell you multitasking is a misnomer. It doesn't exist. None of us can do it well. But you're right, in this busy world where we got 1,000 things going on physically and outside of ourselves, but also in our heads, that being fully present and truly able to listen and to understand what someone's going through, even beyond the words they're communicating, and being present to have that level of connection, is what you called it, is becoming more and more rare because of all the distractions. So I love this message that you have to be more fully present, to truly care about our team, and understand that sometimes the person on our team may not be an ideal fit, which means they're not a good fit for us, and they're not a good fit.
Not a good fit
and
for them
vice versa. We're not a good fit for them. So, finding a way to help them exit with their head held high is a beautiful thing, so they can go on and live fulfilling lives where they do need to be. Sometimes that's not with us, right?
Right.
I love that. When you talk about this whole music thing, I know this sounds really crazy when I say it, Tom, but I almost wonder why companies don't have like a song beyond just a marketing jingle, but a song that represents their vision, that is played at conferences or used in the recruitment strategies or whatever, because music does touch the heart. It creates pictures and it motivates us to do certain things. So I think you should write a song for Donato's.
I think I will. We did, my sister-in-law wrote the lyrics and I wrote the music, and we did record a song a while back, but we may have to dust that off again. I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's funny you talk about that. I was remembering the other day when I was at school at Ohio State, I took a film class, and I added my own kind of twist, a research twist, which I created a film that was of basically of my girlfriend at the time, and I split all the classes into two groups, and I put different music tracks on two different. So I had two different music tracks on the same film, and then I researched people's attitudes about this person, and it was incredible, the difference. That the content was exactly the same. The only thing that was different was the music. And
Wow.
it was, I think I had more somber music on the other version, and everyone assumed that person had passed away or whatever. All the attitudes and views were different, but with the exact same thing. So yeah, you're right. Music is super impactful. I recently wrote a song. My son, who was 8 at the time, was fascinated with hot dogs, and he had a business idea to create gourmet hot dogs that were thematically designed based on the holidays. So St. Patrick's Day is lots of green toppings, and Thanksgiving had gravy and turkey dogs and all that. It was hilarious. So I called him the Hot Dog Boy. So anyway, I've recently written and produced a song called The Hot Dog Boy, and I just sent it out. And it's a silly, fun song, and it is getting picked up on the radio. It got picked up by our minor league baseball team. I was there last night for the hot dog race. They wanted me out on the diamond. I told my wife, I go, I know I'm the pizza guy, but I'm becoming known as the hot dog guy.
Hot dog guy.
But it brings joy, and I guess that's the point. I think music can bring joy, and our job as leaders sometimes is to bring some joy. We just had a meeting this morning, and I was doodling while I was listening, going, "We're not having enough fun here. we need to bring some joy in here." So.
Wow.
And music would do that. You could instantly, start belting out the pizza song or the hot
I've done
dog
it
song.
before. A few years ago, we were doing a thing where when we would recognize somebody, we'd surprise them, and we would show up like while they were in a meeting. We'd burst in and interrupt the meeting. Two of us had guitars, and we sang a song about them, and then gave them a pie, and then left. And they thought that they didn't know what happened to them. Half the people think I'm crazy. The other half think I'm pretty funny. So who knows?
So fun. It's so spontaneous. It creates such an engaged workforce, right?
Exactly.
Enjoyable. Beautiful. Oh
Exactly.
God. Way to go with a question after all of that. I should ask you about the music or the hot dogs or the so tell us a little bit about, other ways that as a leader you engage your team. We know you have the music but there are also, times that are like very serious as well. What are
Yeah.
what are some of the ways that you engage your team, or, some interesting thing that you might have done that made people like stop and say, wow, we need to step up here.
The one thing, Tracy, that I think about is probably 5 years ago. We're in the middle of some growth, and with growth comes a lot of growing pains and a minor amount of chaos here and there, and lots of initiatives and things like that. And so, I have two things I'm thinking about, but one was there was frustration at the store level because there were a lot of, there, like I said, there was a lot of customers and there was a lot of initiatives. And so I did something called King for a Day, where I literally met with store level associates. It was just them and me. So there was nobody in between them and me. And I met with them and just said, and I had open season. I said, if you were to, ran this company, what would you do? I mean, I had it organized in my mind, but it allowed them to vent, number one,
Mhm.
give us some ideas, number two, And number three, feel like they're being heard, and they really were being heard. And I think I talked to 150 associates that time.
Oh.
And I was not sure if they were going to open up. I thought, they're going to talk to the CEO and maybe they'll clam up. Well, good news is they didn't clam up. So I thought that was a victory. They felt like they could trust us enough to be able to be honest. But we were able to, and honestly, a couple of things that they had suggested, we had already kind of identified. So we were moving down the road, and then we came back and said, based on what you said, here's what we're doing. And it was really powerful. It seems kind of simple and corny, but it was really powerful.
That's
Like you
great.
said, it makes them feel heard.
Yeah. And they were heard.
And then if they can see, here are things that we're doing based on this wonderful feedback, even though maybe 36 people said the same thing, it's still, they feel heard, and that we're implementing things to fulfill whatever their needs are. I think it goes back to, at a human level, we all want to feel significant, right?
Right.
And part of feeling significant is to be understood, and part of being understood is being heard. And that's exactly what you did.
That's exactly right. I literally wrote that down today as I was scribbling also. People want to be understood and heard. And so, I think the other one, Tracy, I was thinking about was, and this was a while ago, when I first got in position as CEO, we didn't really have a real strong plan. We were kind of working on a number of things, but so I implemented, it's not new, but I implemented the idea of big rocks, the big rock concept where,
No, I don't.
and for those so if you envision a barrel and you've got, rocks this size, and then, gravel, and then sand, if you put the sand in and then the gravel, you won't fit the rocks in. If you put the big rocks in first and pour the sand, and the metaphor is first things first, and second things never, kind of an idea. Focus on the most important things. And this was a process to really get the whole company. And I had to ask everybody, where do you think we need to focus? And then we'd say, how impactful do we think that could be? How much effort is that? And we came up with these rocks, and we started then just in a very boring but consistent way, chipping away at making progress on those rocks. And sure enough, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, we were much farther down the road. And the great news is they built the plan, not me. They didn't build I didn't build the plan. They built the plan.
Wow. So
And
3 years later, you were an overnight success.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we could talk about overnight success. That's a pet peeve of mine. It's like, let's decide where we want to be, and then let's figure out, how do we get there. So, but it was really, it had a lot of impact for people. Like you were saying, Rebecca, people felt heard, and then they felt significant because it was their contribution that really was driving the company, and then they benefited from it too. So I tried something. I went one step too far. I said, I'm sure there's a lot of things that people work on every day that have nothing to do with any of these rocks, and they wish they could get rid of it. And I wish they could too, because I'd rather do fewer things on the most important stuff, right? So I had a meeting where I made a fake bonfire, and I put it in the boardroom, and I asked all of our leadership to come in, and you get to throw on the bonfire all the stuff you hate doing that doesn't get us where we want to go.
Wow.
And I thought, they're going to love this. Well, guess what? They didn't bring anything.
What?
They didn't know me yet. It was too
Oh,
early.
too soon.
Too soon. Too soon.
Wow. I would have brought a bunch of stuff. I would have had a gunny sack full.
Well, I think they were afraid that what I was really trying to do is to ask them themselves to jump on the fire. So I think that's probably, I had to have a couple of years of trust building before they realized, no, I really meant it. So, and now we do that on a regular basis. So it's kind of a neat process.
Crazy. I was reading a little bit about you before, of course, we had the wonderful opportunity to meet you face to face. And you talk about the one question that is powerful when working with team. Can you share what that one question is and how that works?
Yeah, it's simple, and I'm sure somebody taught me this, but it's simple to say, but not hard to is hard to do sometimes. And that is, you just literally after let's say you're having a meeting with one of your folks, and they're dealing with updating you or whatever, and it's, what is it that I can do to help remove barriers or improve your chances of accomplishing what you want to accomplish? I know it sounds boring, but it seems like no one asks that question, is what it seems like to me, is no one asks that question. Or if they do ask that question, they don't really mean it. And when I first am working with somebody at first, they're a little cautious. Then there's a long list. And then I follow up on it, because that's really what my job is. My
Mhm.
job is to, number one, have our leadership build a plan together that they own and keep it focused, make sure it's in alignment with our mission and vision. And then number two, take away barriers or help facilitate them getting there. I need to be a helper. Was another word I wrote down today. Being a helper. I think as a leader, you want to be helping them. It's, they're trying to get somewhere. And maybe your help is, hey, you've got some leadership behaviors that are rubbing people the wrong way, and let me help you out with this. Oh gosh, no one ever told me that. It's kind of like, no one ever told me I had bad breath. Well, thanks for telling me. And sometimes it's, they're clear. I've got a problem. This one department is having, it's a blockade for me, and so you bring it together. So it's really the most powerful thing I think you can do. And back to what you were saying earlier, Rebecca or Tracy, I can't remember which of you said, it allows people to feel heard too. I mean, just because you're coming in to meet with me doesn't mean you're here to report what you're doing and I'm there to judge you. It's really, I'm here to help you get where you want to get to. So I think that's the one. If that's the only thing you did all day, I think whatever your leadership position is, I think you'd be miles ahead of anybody else.
I think that's brilliant. I can tell you from firsthand experience, I'm working with someone in middle management right now, and every time he goes to his boss, she has a tendency to try to take over the project. And that's exactly what went through my mind when you just said, well, it would be so great to teach. What is the one thing that I can do to help you remove barriers or obstacles? I think that's
Exactly. Because that leader probably doesn't really want to take it over. And not only that, they just told the person you can't handle it, right?
right. Exactly. And that shows so much support.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it does. It's interesting you say that, Tom and Tracy. Um, as the CEO of my own company, I'm in the software business, and I had a project that was dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. And I have a phenomenal software team. And I'm like, what is going on here? But I never asked that question. What can I do to remove obstacles, or what might be preventing you from achieving the goals that you have? And the one time I did, I discovered the issue. And
Right.
it was like, you mean we've been dragging this on for 8 years and this was the issue? We can solve this issue. But what I discovered was that this individual so desperately wanted to help and do a good job, she didn't want to admit she had a weakness or a
Yeah.
problem in a certain type of coding. So it
Right.
was embarrassing for her to come
Right.
to me with it.
Yeah.
By asking a somewhat similar question, she was able to share and we were able to solve the problem. So I think you're right. This question is simple, Tom, but it is incredibly powerful.
It's so powerful. And I think in your situation too, that, people are willing to give trust at different speeds, and to admit, that they're missing on something. You've got to have a very deep relationship with that person to know that it's okay. It's okay that you don't know this. It's not okay that you let it sit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I took a leadership course years ago, Tom, that said there's only two reasons people don't do what they need to do. One is they don't know how, which is something that they can learn, right? And two is they don't want to. And when I first learned that, I'm like, really? Everything's about I don't know how and I don't want to. But I see it more and more. If we give them the how and they wanna, they usually get it. And the wanna goes back to your vision and goes
Yeah.
back to the bigger purpose of your organization.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. I may steal that for my next corner piece if that's all right.
Real how and I don't wanna.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
you recently did an event where you were a speaker. I wished I could have been there. Engineering Brand Love Summit. Were some of the tips you've already given us in that? Is there anything you're holding back from us
No, although I did play my guitar during that presentation, which was a little different. So, I suppose the other music metaphor really has to do with planning, writing a song. And this isn't true for all music, but popular music or country music, let's say, you have, and the metaphor is a verse is similar to an initiative. It's part of the story. The chorus is really the mission of the company. This is the theme of who we are, like you said, that should be sung over and over. And then there was something called the bridge. I don't know if you're familiar with in music. The James Brown used to say, "Take it to the bridge." Well, the bridge is usually a change in key or a change in instrumentation. It's kind of a level of specialness that gets your attention because you're, with a song, you're moving along and I got it. And then this adds this level of interest and I kind of I liken that to some of the things we were talking about before, which is fun and showing up in somebody's meeting and busting through and singing them a song and giving them a pie. It's that special sauce, or culture might really be what that bridge is. And you have to have all of those ingredients. You can't just have culture and not have the discipline of a plan. You can't just have a plan and not have the energy that comes from the culture. You have to have, and you also can't have a plan and culture without a vision of where you're going. What is your vision as an organization? And what does that mean for everybody? And I pull that from music or songs. And so we talked about that a little bit, and I got the audience to sing a little bit. So that was fun.
How fun. How fun. I see a book on this because those analogies and those corresponding things, people can get a picture of that and understand and differentiate between plan and culture and vision and best practices. They can begin to see the differences when there's a visual like you have described. Never mind, it creates the one thing we want, which is harmony, right? We want some harmony, we want productivity, we want profits, we want all those things. And that's what music in part is about, right? In fact, it drives me nuts when there is no harmony. It drives me nuts.
I hear you.
I'm all about the harmony.
Yes, I agree.
So this is a fascinating concept and conversation, Tom. You are also doing some things on LinkedIn where you're talking about leadership there, but specifically as it relates to the fast casual space. Do you think much of what's going on in fast casual is the same or different than other verticals, let's say home services or other verticals that you might compete?
I think there's probably more similarities than there are differences. I mean, obviously, different categories within restaurant ebb and flow in their popularity based on the economy or based on technology and things like that. Fast casual came about years ago because it was filling a gap that wasn't there. The traditional QSR quality wasn't good enough, and the casual dining or upscale was too expensive, and they found this niche, and customers were willing to participate by telling people what they want on their food, and standing and paying for it and sitting down. And so I think now, and certainly post COVID, I think there's there's a challenge. I think the dine-in side of the business is being challenged post COVID. Even dine-in business is down significantly over what it was prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I think McDonald's, I just read recently, they dropped like some 10 percentage points of dine-in sales. So the customer is changing, yet restaurant companies are still building bricks and mortar. But how big do you build it? Do you build it real small and reduce the risk? But how are you affecting the brand? I think there's a lot to kind of, and now the brand is being experienced by, what's on the phone or how they order and things like that. So there's a lot to sort out with fast casual right now. But, as it relates to what you were mentioning, some of these things we're talking about, whether it's music or leadership, I still do think, well, I know we're in the people business. So how you engage and how you connect with people, whether they're your customers or whether they're your associates, whether you're talking to them in the dining room or whether you're communicating with them on social, it is still about connection and authentic. And how do you remain authentic in the way you communicate and connect with people? It can't all be solved by algorithms. I think it's still, people are smart. They before they spend their money with a restaurant company or anybody, they want to know a little bit about who they are. So I think some of these principles of being authentic and listening, and I think it's all really still important, and we can't miss that point as things are, accelerating technologically or whatever. So
Speaking of which, that was a perfect segue.
oh, good.
And you said, people want to know who you are. Tell us who you are. Like, how did you get into franchise to begin with?
So let's see. I started my career in brand marketing. I was I was a partner of a small advertising agency, and my partner decided to have a midlife crisis, and I decided to sell the business. So, so I ended up working for Wendy's advertising agency. So I worked for the agency that did the Dave Thomas campaign back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually was hired over. Wendy's hired me over and wanted me to come work within the marketing department. And so I was a part of what was a great experience working with Dave Thomas directly.
Wow.
I've got to work with Dave Thomas and my father-in-law, Jim Grody, who started Donato's, two great restaurant people, two great leaders. And now with Dave, we'd go film the commercials in New York, and his wife was giving him a hard time about not exercising. So she made him walk around the block every day. And so part of my job was to walk with Dave around the block every day. So I was the Dave whisperer there for a little while, but so I got exposed to, fast food and quality fast food, and the idea of franchising really came my experience at Wendy's, and then I came to Donato's 23 years ago. You had most of the story right in the intro. First, I fell in love with the pizza. Then I fell in love with the job offer. Then I fell in love with the company. And then the last one was I fell in love with the founder's daughter, and
Aw.
she's my wife. She's the chairman of the company, and her office is right over here. So I'm all in. I am all in.
You
But
are literally all in.
yeah,
That's funny.
but I love franchising. I love the passion that franchisees have. We call them franchise partners because they're bringing their gift. My old boss at Wendy's, Jim Neer, used to call franchising batteries not included. You know, we give you the basic concept, but you got to apply your batteries, and to watch how different franchise partners bring their gifts to make their business successful. I just love that. And so we've, in fact, Donato's, when I started here, really, we only had, I think, 10 franchisees, 12 franchisees maybe at the time. And now we have, I think, 38. And we're really starting to expand. People like Patty Moore, who I understand
Mhm.
was on your show. I don't know if that's been broadcast yet or not, but she, you know, she's somebody that she's an incredible person. And talk about love of franchising. She probably told her stories of kind of being thrown into it. It wasn't necessarily by design, but she was thrown into it, and she has such poise, such courage, such smarts. So she was the chair of the board of Red Robin.
Mhm.
And Donato's, have done a partnership with Red Robin, and so she came off the board, but she said she was so in love with the idea she wanted to franchise. I thought she was kidding, to be honest with you, but sure enough, and boy, you couldn't pick a better person to
Mhm.
that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I got into franchising really predominantly through Wendy's. I also, when I had my own firm, we handled the McDonald's account in Columbus, Ohio. We did the public relations for McDonald's in Columbus, which McDonald's was really trying to make a statement to Wendy's, because that's when Columbus is Wendy's home market. And funny little story here, if I have time.
Yes.
So our little agency, we were handling the McDonald's PR and doing a great job, I might add. And we started picking up all these little accounts, you know, shoe store here, a leasing company, a rust proofing company, blah, blah, blah. We're like, wow, we're getting a lot of business. Well, we look into it, and one of either passive or active investor in all of those businesses was Dave Thomas himself.
Oh,
And Dave
Wow.
and his daughter, Wendy, who I went to high school with, Wendy, with
Um,
McPhail's Wendy, was just graduating from marketing from University of Florida. So he had this idea, I heard, is that he was going to, surround us, buy our business, and Wendy was going to run the agency. He would take care, like a classic entrepreneur, he'd take care of about 3 or 4 problems with one move, right? So
Checkmate.
yeah, exactly.
like
So
chess, right? It's like he was playing chess.
he was, but that's how McDonald's really was the start, and then Wendy's, now Donato's. So, but I love it.
What a fun story. Well, before we wrap up at all, Tom, I want to make sure if people want to know more about you, want to know more about Donato's, how they might get hold of you.
You know, if they go onto LinkedIn, I do this corner piece every week. They can read about that. They can get my information and connect to me through that, and I respond pretty good job of responding to just about anybody. We have just started franchising to the entire country for the first time in our 60-year history. So we are franchising just about everywhere. We weren't before, just because our product was so customized. We had to stay regional, but now with Red Robin, we're in distribution houses across the country. So we are selling a lot of territories very quickly right now. So I sound like a sales guy when I say you better hurry, because your market may be gone. But it's true. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. So
Perfect. So guys, if you want to connect with Tom, go to LinkedIn. It's called
we'll go to our website also.
You can go to the website also. So the Corner Piece Leadership Insights by a Pizza Man, where Tom gives all kinds of great advice. Tom, I want to thank you for sharing your heart and your passion and your vision for Donato's. So thank you for carving out time. We really appreciate you.
I want to thank you. You two have a really special thing going here. I love what you're doing, and you're putting the right kind of mojo into it. I think it's fantastic. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. I love having you.
We're the batteries.
There you go.
The franchise.
Energizer batteries.
So Tracy, I'm going to punt over to you for some closing comments.
I mean, in addition to you just being so much fun, I could only imagine that your team must have a blast working with you and just loving the culture that you create. I have to say that I truly, I'm all in. I've bought into the brand. I believe that your talk of being simple, captivating, meaningful, inspiring, I believe you walk that truly. You truly walk that. You know, I feel like your music, I feel very filled up leaving this interview. So thank you for who you are. Thank you for bringing that music to franchise and just for who you show up as. I love it, and keep going.
Wow. Thank you so much. Those are such kind comments. I really appreciate it.
From the heart. Truly mean it.
Yes. So Tom, next time we see you, we expect a Donato's song and a guitar.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
All right. And to the audience listening in today, thank you for doing so. Share this interview with those that you care about, especially those interested in franchising, and of course, other executives in the franchise space. So this is the Franchise Woman, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. We'll see you next week on another episode.